Welcome to my channel. My name is Alex, and before we dive into the making of Spider-Man, I just want to give you a brief overview of what to expect from my channel. My primary goal is to create videos that take a deep dive behind what goes into making the games we love, such as discussing the game engine used, the voice actors, and overall vision for the game, so when you go back to play your game, or if you're playing it for the first time, you'll truly have a greater appreciation for all the hard work that went into delivering that memorable experience. The secondary goal for the channel is to create a community where we can openly and freely discuss positive topics and trends in the gaming industry, which is currently the opposite of the larger majority of the YouTube gaming community as a whole. So without further ado, let's take a look into the making of Insomniac's Spider-Man. Marvel's latest iteration of Spider-Man had very humble beginnings due to the two previous games, Spider-Man Dimensions as well as the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Both games were just absolutely torn to shreds by critics and consumers alike, with Metacritic ratings weighing in at 76 and 49%. Marvel essentially gave Sony the reins to choose which superhero they wanted to make a game for, as well as whomever they wanted to be responsible for its development. Insomniac and Sony decided on Spider-Man. To be quite frank, Sony couldn't have picked a more qualified developer than Insomniac Games due to their sheer experience in the game industry as a whole. They have been responsible for critically acclaimed games such as the Ratchet & Clank and Spyro series, and they are certainly not afraid of developing games outside their so-called wheelhouse. Insomniac certainly also is no slouch when it just comes to AAA production, with one of their larger scale productions of recent memory being the Resistance series, which essentially was a 3-game trilogy released exclusively on the PlayStation 3, which had meant to rival the juggernauts of the Halos and Call of Duties during the 360 and PlayStation 3 era. After the release of the third game, though, they chose to cease production after receiving just lukewarm reviews on Metacritic and truly struggling to establish a strong following altogether. They have been quoted to say that they are no longer planning to make a fourth game because the studio nor Sony have any interest in developing a fourth game. Their most recent works are on the criminally overlooked game called Sunset Overdrive, which Brian, the game director of Spider-Man, talked about during a brilliant interview done by GameSpot. Brian talked about the game from the very beginning, from its initial conception all the way to the release of the game and the reception that they have received. Also, I do want to warn you that there are some major spoilers, so I will be linking the interview in the description below. But if you haven't beat the game yet, only watch the first 2/3 of the interview, otherwise you'll be running into major spoiler territory. In the interview, Brian expressed the team's desire to create a game that wasn't for the die-hard Marvel fan, but for the everyday person that enjoys video games in general. The game is built off a modified engine that was used in Sunset Overdrive, which was a challenge within itself. Brian has claimed that there were some struggles with getting the game to feel as fluid due to the amount of rendering that they had to do at 3 times the speed than the original engine was utilized for. Another concern they had while developing the game was how far they would be able to push the limits of what was acceptable and what would be viewed as unacceptable in the Marvel universe, because Marvel essentially had the final say in what could be and couldn't be in the game. With that in mind, Insomniac found the perfect balance between not straying too far from the traditional Spider-Man universe, as well as creating a fun and highly replayable world. Throughout the development of the game, Brian wanted to create Peter Parker as a playable character to show the side of Peter without the suit. Then after doing so, he also pushed the team to make Mary Jane's and Miles playable, which just seems like an overly ambitious choice, but was handled with such grace that it just feels natural, not forced. The playable characters create such a unique depth that it's very rarely seen in modern video games today, and a lot of this can be attributed to how the characters were designed. The art design team was led by Jacinda Chu, who went into great detail about the process during the interview she did at E3. During the interview, she expressed that she has a lot of trouble with accepting things in the world for the way they are, and likes the unique challenges of overcoming societal norms. She also sees the world through lenses just filled to the brim with diversity, which is evident in the game's characters, as well as the overall world building elements scattered throughout the city of New York. For example, when you're web slinging across the city, you'll see NPCs wearing yarmulkes and hijabs, and you also see other inclusionary art design with some walls and flags with LGBTQ community colors in mind. Although Spider-Man is very inclusionary and unique sandbox, you need relatable characters to truly tell a tale of this Spider-Man epic. And so the search began for Insomniac's Spider-Man, and the search did not last long because they settled with Lowenthal, Yuri worked as one of the voice actors on Sunset Overdrive. He is also known for his work on Ben 10 Omniverse as Ben Tennyson. They almost didn't pick him because of his work on the previous game, but they felt as though his voice encapsulated the Peter Parker in his early 20s, which is the time period in which the game begins with. Jacinda also pointed out how the development team creates living spaces for the characters and really trying to narrow down who these characters were and how they were currently living. In Peter's case, he is a young adult living in New York City and is struggling with the stereotypical problems of a young male, such as keeping a sanitary living space. In every Spider-Man reboot, there's been a Mary Jane by his side, and in this universe, Jacinda Chu wanted Mary Jane to be a strong, capable woman and less of a damsel in distress. In the game, she is a reporter for the Daily Bugle, and during the sequences you play as her, you'll be sneaking behind enemy lines trying to dig up the next news-breaking story. Mary Jane is voice acted by Laura Bailey, who is best known for her work on Gears of War 4 as Kate Diaz, and most recently Uncharted Lost Legacy as Nadine Ross. The character that went through one of the biggest changes during development was Najee Jeter's character. He was responsible for voice acting Miles Morales. Miles' role was initially going to be very minimal in the game, but then Insomniac was given the green light to explore who Miles is because he is the newest member of the Spider-Verse and is the focal point of Marvel's next animated movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Najee Peters is mostly known for his roles as Andre McKenzie in Grown Ups 1 and 2, and being a voice actor for Sam in The Last of Us. One of the most interesting stories in regards to voice actors and their overall dynamic is that the voice actor responsible for Yuri Watanabe, who is Spider-Man's direct contact to the NY Police Department, is voice acted by Tara Platt, who is actually... Other notable voice actors is Nancy Linari, who's done work for the TV series Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life as Martha, and she also plays a prominent role as May Parker throughout the Spider-Man game. Norman Osborn also makes some notable appearances throughout the game as the mayor of New York City and a CEO of Oscorp. Norman is voiced by Mark Rolston, who you may have known from his roles in The Shawshank Redemption as Bounce Diamond, and in the 1968 version of Alien as Private Drake. Otto Octavius had a very prominent role throughout the game. He is actually voiced by William Sailors, who voice acted the character Morton Solus in Mass Effect 3, and there are certainly other actors we are leaving out, but these are the few most prominent actors in the game. So with how much work went into the game, it finally got gold status, and it was time for the public to get their hands on the game for themselves. The game was released with overwhelming praise, and many critics have stated that it's the best Spider-Man game to ever be released. Many critics praise the game for its very intuitive traversal system that is truly a spectacle to be seen, and that every gamer just needs to experience at least one time in their life. Many critics have also shared many concerns about the game for how long it was, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but many of them tired of the repetitive side quests that are required to upgrade Spidey as well as unlock all of his suits for him. Overall, the game was very well received and just in time for the release of Marvel's next animated movie, Into the Spider-Verse, which further explores Miles Morales, which was teased at the end of the game's credits. I just want to thank everyone that has made it this far. If you enjoyed the video, I'd truly appreciate it if you could do me a massive favor and hit that like button. Also, if there's anything that I left out in the video, please let me know in the comments below and leave a comment with what game you'd like me to make a video for next.